Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the United Nations Staff Recreation Council SAILS Wellbeing Network. We're gathered here today because we care. We're all here as a response to what's happening in the world. And we're very honored to have this distinguished panel of guests here, invited by our filmmaker, activist, Greg Reitman, and we are here to discuss the topics around his very award-winning film globally right now at this point. He has many awards. Rooted in Peace, that challenges viewers to examine their values as Americans and human beings in general. Greg's film journey takes us on a little trip to notice what's going on in the world we live in and proactively seek ways to find personal and ecological peace and stop the cycle of violence. The film relies not only on a memoir, but also interviews luminaries and activists and learns from all of them. And he heeds Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's words that if the forest is to be green, every tree must be green. If there's going to be peace on earth, then everyone needs to experience that quality of peace within themselves. And so in asking the viewers to do the same, Greg Reitman poses the basic question: how do we want to live our lives today? Greg Reitman, the director and producer, writer, and active member of the Directors Guild of America, is described by Movie Makers magazine as one of the top 10 filmmakers producing content that impacts the world. He is the founder of Blue Water Entertainment. I'd like to also introduce the rest of our panels here today. Our guest, Laura Turner-Seidel, an international environmental advocate of eco-living. She's an eco-living expert and chairperson of the Captain Planet Foundation. Fabien Cousteau, aquanaut and world oceanographer, explorer, environmental advocate, and founder of the Fabien Cousteau Ocean Learning Center. Lawrence Bloom, Secretary General of the Be Earth Foundation, which is a United Nations intergovernmental organization that advises and assists and enables the implementation of sustainable development goals. Scotty Brewer is an activist for peace. He is the founder of PeaceNow.com, a non-for-profit with the mission of empowering 1 billion global citizens for the creation of departments of peace with all governments. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here with us. A round of applause for our panel. And I'm going to direct your attention now to our screen for a little preview and teaser of Rooted in Peace.
All right, let's hit the lights. Yeah.
Beginning of time, we have been at war with ourselves and our environment. Violence infects our world. It lives in our streets, our communities. Environmental destruction ravages our planet. As we continue to destroy the very fabric of life, our world is turned upside down, and in turn, our world is sick, very sick. I was committed to finding peace, and for me, my journey began with trees. My name is Greg Reitman. This is my story.
Taking away the moments that make up a dull day.
I just want to say that was the shortened version, and my editor did it, and thank God he did it. At one point I had to just let it go, but there is the 88-minute version, but God, it's so different.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's quick. It's just I think I'm on a totally different, but it's kind of weird seeing it in that way, you know.
Well, you encompassed everything in one film.
Yeah, and when you think about that, right? I think about food, health, water, toxins, war, peace, nuclear. You know, did I miss anything, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And you should all see the longer version if you ever have the opportunity. Yeah.
I wanted to say that we have another 35 minutes to do a panel discussion, and I also wanted to introduce somebody like Scott Luxor. Please stand up, Scott. Scott is going to be doing the Green Festival at Javits Center for 2 days. We, the Vigil people, and the Salos group is going to have a booth for the Pavilion of Peace in a booth. So you're all invited to join me. Call me, text me, susanabastarrica@gmail.com, because it's going to be about 20 hours of work we would like to share. And everybody here must have flyers, things, and we would like to have that kind of a connection to extend our knowledge to people. They will come and visit the booth, and we can talk directly. So you're all invited. Please contact me, susanabastarrica@gmail.com, and go to Facebook. We're going to make a special event. Ethan is going to make us a special event. And please don't hesitate to call me. This group and this club is dedicated to bringing peace, to bringing well-being and health. And I have 4 volunteers, which I forgot their names, who told me that can help me with the men's health. Was it you? Yes. And also we have Sachs, Olivia Sachs, you, also Mitchell. Yes, so we're going to, Slaughter. So we're going to have, the next thing, our plan is to have in July a men's well-being network fair with the medical service at the UN, because the stress, we have the women, we have the children, we have that, and they all have women's groups, and lovely. But the men are being very stressed. They have to cope with all of the things and the politics and their work. And they were coming to me, I'm a minister, and reflecting this kind of heaviness, but there is no outlet for them. There is not like a men's support group, because it looks very, very not cool, so they want to be cool. So it's better to be healthy than to be cool. So please, Yanna Darilis is going to start. Thank you.
Connected inner sustainability with outer sustainability. Your journey was very long. Tell us a little bit about the experience from your first film, Fuel, which I don't know if any of you have seen, which dealt with...
Well, Fuel was more about our addiction to oil, and that was really about how we connect what's coming out of the earth and we put in our gas tank, and for people to make that connection. And so, that took Josh Tikel about 8 years to make that film. It took me about 4. I think he was working on it 4 years prior and wasn't really happening. And then I just got lucky. I think my first week I found like a $50,000 check, and then my second week I found another $50,000 check, and the rest was off. But the important thing about that film, again, it's just looking at petroleum, it's looking at oil. It hasn't gone away, and really at that particular point, after we had won the Audience Award at Sundance, I think where I was at a different point, it was sort of like, it was post 9/11, I was coming through JFK, and I was drinking my water bottle like a normal day, and I almost got arrested for drinking water. And basically the TSA agent asked me, he's like, if you don't leave your water, you're going to need to step out into the room. And I'm from New York, and I was like, all right, where are we going to step out? I'm like, sure, here's the water, no problem. I'm going to get on my flight. But it really made me think about how our world had changed post 9/11 and what was going on. I interviewed the woman, Suzanne Herman, who was at that point, she was the president of the ACLU. And really understanding how our laws were changing and about our privacy was changing. And it really moved me to a point of wanting to tell this story about Rooted in Peace, and really sort of activate, I guess, or make a film that would get people to understand how important our planet is and how interconnected we are. But in truth, the film that I made was not something that I had written down on a piece of paper. That film just came into me, into that world, and we just kind of found.
So everything just led to the next step.
Well, I had a very good story editor, I'll admit, named Mark Zonitzer, who was the story editor of The Cove that won the Oscar. And Mark, what most people don't know, is Mark Monroe, who wrote The Cove, but Mark Zonitzer was really the brainchild of Paul Dupre, who was the producer, and they had really understood about how important story editing was. And when I was making this film about peace and consciousness, it was really hard to show that on screen. So Mark, when he saw the material, he said, look, I'm up for this challenge. and he wrote me 7 points, and he said you only can use 10 characters. So I had shot a lot of footage already. I was like, you're going to kill all my babies? He's like, yeah, they're all going, all 30 of them. So I had shot like 40 interviews, and he's like, take 10. And he's like, and then tell that story. And I'm like, that's really hard. And so, but it actually, in light, as a filmmaker, it made it easier because I was able to sort of weed out. And then the characters that really stood out, like Paul Hawken and Fabian Cousteau, which in the longer version you'll see more of it, or William McDonough. And then there's bits of Ted Turner, Laura's dad. Even though it was a hard interview with him, we still got a lot of really good material. It was really about how we were going to tell that story. And so that's what was.
And the story says that life creates the condition.
Of life.
Life. So we're basically, is it a reflection of ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, basically you wake up, if you're angry, your world's going to be angry. If you're happy, you're going to be happy. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway that I took from the film. I wouldn't say I was unhappy, but I saw a lot of people that were unhappy. And I saw a lot of fighting and a lot of, manipulation going on, even with our own production team, and that really disheartened me. And so I really wanted, when I made the film, I came to that understanding that I really can't change anything other than myself.
And so you're planting seeds at the end of the film. You're giving your nephew information and education.
Yes.
And I would like to turn now on that point to Laura Turner, who is working with children. And she is a mother, and she comes from a wonderful family that is in media. The Kaplan Foundation. Tell us about the Kaplan Foundation and how you are uniting, how you're interconnecting the inner and the outer world.
Sure. Well, it's Captain Planet. There are probably a few Planeteers in the room. Millennials. There may have been some folks that came to it later in life or earlier. But it was a cartoon, and I was glad to see you open up the film. Captain Planet should have been in there. I mean, Ted obviously is the real live Captain Planet, but
that should have been in there. I mean, I look back.
Yeah, it's good. But there is kind of a peaceful guy that edutained kids. The first eco superhero, Captain Planet, that was seen in 100 countries. In 23 languages by millions of youth around the globe. And it really was focused on teaching kids about issues of global importance, not just environmental issues, but social issues, landmines, war, AIDS, things that maybe we thought would have gone away by now in our next stage of enlightenment, but they really haven't. Does this mean that I have the mic? The planet. But we all have Captain Planet inside of us, and it was my dad's vision to edutain kids on television, and obviously that was when there wasn't a lot of competition. It was really before Cartoon Network that gave you 24/7 pretty much garbage these days. And you will find Captain Planet on Boomerang, which is the resting place for Looney Tunes and Fred Flintstone, sadly. But, one good thing is Leonardo DiCaprio's production company, one of them, has purchased the rights to Captain Planet, and so maybe we'll get a new film before we...
You're also raising awareness on food.
Yeah, well, just about the foundation, in case any of you are educators or have relationships with educators, please go online, the Captain Planet Foundation, because for 25 years we've been making grants to educators, formal and informal, for hands-on environmental stewardship projects. So getting kids off their butts, out of the classroom and out in nature where they should be, growing in gardens, testing and monitoring their water supplies, doing habitat restoration, starting recycling programs, and that was the whole idea when my dad and Barbara Pyle started the foundation so many years ago. But one of our biggest grant requests has been gardens, school gardens. So we've funded about 1,000 of them in all 50 states. And we have a learning garden program, which we implemented 5 years ago, that really addressed the barriers to longevity of school gardens. So we supply the gardens, the kids put them in, but we also train the teachers. A lot of urban teachers have forgotten how to manage their kids in the outdoors, and they're terrified of nature as much as the kids are, dirt, germs, and bugs. So, you know, that's really important. Then we supply mobile kitchen carts. So what the kids are planting, they're harvesting, and they're preparing in the classroom, and it's really their first kind of contact with organic vegetarian food. And then hopefully they can go and teach the wonderful ladies in the lunchroom that get no respect, and probably half of them have never cooked a meal at home in their lives, and they've taken a lot of the kitchens out, so it's just a horrible situation. But they can say, this is how to do it, Mom and Dad. This is how we do it, grandparents. We can grow tomatoes on our porch. And I know that we're running short of time, but you know, Mark Hyman was in this, obviously was one of your interviews, and he helped save your life. But the study that he was referring to was one done by the American Red Cross in EWG, Environmental Working Group. And this was, many years ago, and they tested the blood of 10 Americans, and they found 300 nearly industrial chemicals, and it came from the cord blood of babies in utero. And it was carcinogens, hormone disruptors from the things that their mother ate or drank or consumed, you know, put on their body or breathed. And it wasn't anything that the child could do anything about it. And chronic childhood diseases are off the chain. There are about 70 million sick kids in the U.S. alone with some form of chronic disease, and they're all on the rise. And as we know, food is medicine. So if kids are actually eating healthier food, and moms, who are the chief consumption officers of the household, are selecting making healthier choices for their families, EWG has a great website, ewg.org, where they have the pesticides and food database. They have the Skin Deep database. So ladies, your favorite skincare products, or men, you know, whatever you're using to shave, or deodorants and things like that, they have 80,000 different products that you can look and see how good, how healthy they are for you and your family. So without further comments, I'm going to turn this back over to our lovely moderator.
She just said it all. And they're doing wonderful strides on increasing awareness on how to avoid, toxic foods, and starting with children, which is the most important thing, because that's the new generation who's going to love the earth and themselves much more. Congratulations. And I'm just wondering, coming from the media family, the great media family that you come from, would your dad do things differently today? What would he show today?
Well, he almost ran for president. I really wish he had done that, but Jane Fonda said that she would leave him, and I understand why, because she would have just been crucified. But she left him anyway, and it was too bad, because Dad would have debated the issues that needed to be debated, win, lose, or draw, and he was always so outspoken on the things that matter to our children and future generations, our life support system. And but the media has changed a lot. Obviously, he started CNN and brought war into our living rooms on our television, and he kind of thought, well, if we relive the atrocities of the Gulf War, maybe we'll really work hard to strive for peace. But that hasn't happened at all. Now Trump wants to cut Meals on Wheels and a lot of, the arts initiatives and NPR and public broadcasting, so he can raise $54 billion to put into the military, complex. Oh, and my time is up. But millennials don't consume their media the same way that we do, and it's John Oliver, it's Vice, yes. It's online, it's social media, and we've got to get them to vote.
Digital natives, absolutely. The new generation is going to make the difference. And another wonderful person who's doing wonderful things. He grew up with an ocean master. His father learned everything about the oceans from your father and your grandfather, and now you have a wonderful foundation doing things with children as well. The community, you're working with the local community and children worldwide to increase awareness of the ecosystems and what's happening. What is going on? Enlighten us about all the initiatives that you're doing, and what is carbonic acid and how is it affecting our ecosystem?
That's a lot to squeeze into 20 seconds or less.
I have a million questions for each of them. But Greg's like, one question, Yanna. So I'm like, I'm going to compound.
A multi-part two-question, right?
Isn't it Are you still doing Planet Fish?
So now it's called the Ocean Learning Center. Okay. So basically, first and foremost, I think the biggest lesson I've learned from my family, my grandfather, is one very simple thing that he said, which is people protect what they love what they understand, and they understand what they're taught. And with that said, that was the lifelong philosophy and mission for now 3 generations, and has been the mantra for the Ocean Learning Center. And the even bigger difficulty with oceans is, as human beings, as terrestrial creatures, now terrestrial creatures, we are, as a community, very disconnected with it, regardless of the fact that whenever any of us go to the beach and look at the ocean, it gives us a sense of peace. It's one of the main reasons why we go on vacation. We seek out these water bodies. And it's the universal connector. It's the reason why we exist. When I was on a panel a couple of weeks ago at the American Museum of Natural History, and the astronauts and us aquanauts were battling it out to see which one was more important, which is a rhetorical question. I just pointed out to the astronauts that when you go out and talk about colonizing other planets, what is the first thing you seek? Water. And with that said, I mean, there's obviously both of these kinds of exploration are equally important. I want to give a nod over to your father, as a matter of fact, because... What's that? Well, someone asked me today, as a matter of fact, in an interview, saying, if we can colonize other planets in the near future, do you think that will save us? And I looked at her and I laughed. I said, how many people do you think you can put on a shuttle to one of these other planets? So you can save 1,000 people, 10,000 people? What about the rest of the people? There's no such thing as escaping the mess that we've created for ourselves. It's now time to restore this place into a semblance of what we love and what we want to give back to our future generations, the things that we've taken for granted. You mentioned PBDEs, well, chemicals in our systems. There's not a single person on this planet that's not born, as far and as remote as they may be, with at least 160 man-made chemicals in their systems. Wow. Now, that said, we were on expedition. I'm sorry, I'm running on and on and on. We were on expedition a few years ago with my father and our team, and we were filming orcas, and a pod of orcas in the Pacific Northwest, specifically, that was going functionally extinct. And the question was why? Why are there spontaneous abortions, learning and behavioral disability in their calves, physical disabilities, and so on and so forth? Because as we look at these animals, these orcas, these killer whales, they are the same thing. They are a reflection in the ocean. The ocean has been used as an endless resource in a garbage can for decades. And we are raging, quite literally, war on our planet. So as these orcas are a reflection, we should be looking at them as the canary in the coal mine. And we did blood sample tests with the scientists who were studying them, and we compared it to our blood sample tests. And your film reminded me of that because you were doing a body burden test in your film here. And lo and behold, because we're equally intelligent, because we live just as long as one another, because we eat the same things, we also have the same chemicals in our bodies. And that species, or that pod specifically, is going extinct. What is going on with us? And I'm sure you found out all sorts of things that are going on inside during that test.
Yes.
And so did we. And despite the fact that our group, our small test group, was a variety of different backgrounds, from vegetarian to omnivore, from France to the United States, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we all had similar challenges within our systems.
So what's the solution?
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, at the end of the day, it's education.
I was going to ask, I mean, it's education. The coral is dying.
Corals,
the sponges are dying. They have a disease. The fish are swimming in different areas. And our water, we can't drink our own water.
right.
Well, there's just so much going on.
There's
The bees are dying, but that's...
Yeah, and that's the thing. Education and leadership are the keys to all these problems. Getting away from waging war on every possible thing we can and turning to a symbiotic relationship with our life support system and our sentient beings, including ourselves.
Symbiotic relationship, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you know, fear is control. War is money. But peace is life.
Bravo. Bravo, Javier. And on that note, I'm going to pass on to Lawrence Bloom, who recently was voted by SALT magazine amongst the top 25 most conscientious global leaders, and some months ago received an award from the United Nations from the Humanitarian Innovation Forum for conscious leadership. Lawrence Bloom is just a plethora of information that we can go on, have a whole panel with him alone, as with all of our panelists here. But most importantly, you believe success can be achieved through social partnerships. We live in the 21st century, yet we are still struggling with sustainability, sustainable life. Underdeveloped countries are still in poverty. There's violence going on. European countries are falling apart. They can't sustain what's going on within their society is falling apart. As an example, Greece, my homeland. And so what expand on the ideas that and your initiatives on how we can make a change?
I think we have to see this in a much more global context. Everybody's focused on what's breaking down. Every dinner party is about what's breaking down. All the media is about what's breaking down. Well, maybe perhaps it's meant to be breaking down. Maybe perhaps we should be looking at what's breaking through, what's breaking down. Maybe we should be looking to see what's wanting to emerge. Maybe species only develop in a way that we now need to develop when they bring upon themselves the sort of crisis that we are bringing upon ourselves. So we could look at this as a disaster or one of the greatest opportunities that this species has ever been presented with. It may just be that we are moving from unconscious co-creation to conscious co-creation. It may just be that we realize the limits of what considering ourselves separate has brought us to. See, I get asked, Lawrence, would you talk publicly about the planet in peril? The planet is not in peril. It's been here 4.5 billion years. Believe me, it'll be here in another 4.5 billion years until the sun becomes a red dwarf. It's us that's in peril. So we don't even word the thing right. I mean, I could really go on forever and ever. Ananda Giri talks about the tree being an external lung. Of course it is, but the sun feeds the tree, the water feeds the tree. This is a totally symbiotic situation. What we need to do, and I realize I'm limited in time, so I'll go straight to an essence that I think is really important, is the children. We're taught separation from a very early age. We're taught separation from birth. This is mum, this is dad, this is you, baby. My name is Lawrence, mum's name is Maureen, your name is Jim. What we're not then taught is, but that separation is so you can put your unique gift in towards the whole, how you can present that gift in this major symphony of humanity. So we are moving, if I may repeat this again, from an age of unconscious co-creation to an age of conscious co-creation. There's a greater urgency here than we know because we're exceeding some of the limits of bio nature. So here's my thought. There are a number of wealthy people on this planet who are leaving considerable sums of money to their children and to their grandchildren and to their great-grandchildren. But will they be leaving a world in which their children and their grandchildren can breathe the air, can swim in the oceans, and can walk the soil? It's time for a major rethink, and the time is now.
We'd also like to thank Scotty Bauer for being here with us. Culture and Society teaches violence. And you have a wonderful website called peacenow.com. And your mission is to raise awareness on peace. Tell us about that mission.
Lawrence, I'm glad you said ended up the time is now, because our organization is named Peace Now. And we are urgent about that. And we're urgent about that because all of the causes that each one of you hold dear, if it is Captain Planet or oceans or poverty or child education or girls not being educated, whatever you are passionate about can be better handled if we are at peace. Because $1.7 trillion are spent each year for the creation of militaries and our budgets for destruction. So it's a matter of resources. Not only is it economic resources, but it is human resources. There's 7.2 billion people on the planet. I think that's a perfect number. We have the opportunity for more scientists, more. I don't know which Bloom is the brilliant person that will lead us. But is that Bloom being extinguished because of poverty in a camp where there's war? There's a refugee. Is that being kidnapped? These girls. I don't know what Bloom that we need to nurture, but we need peace now. We are gathering 1 billion signatures for the creation of departments of peace, for economies of peace, to support the United Nations culture of peace. Each signature is an act of peace. So I don't know how you want to evoke that within yourself. Is that an electromagnetic connection between one another, that we are all one connected, so that is a spiritual connection? Or is that a political connection that we can motivate and connect and call to action people within 196 countries? We've been founded for 3 years, and we have signatures in 192 countries and territories. We lack signatures in Cuba, North Korea, Syria, Kuwait, Qatar, and Congo. With those 5 countries, we will have signatures from every country in the world. So each one of you can be a peace activist, and with that act, that is the key. Being an activist and taking action for what you believe in. But peace is the foundation.
And as you're saying peaceful action, finding peace within ourselves. Thank you all for being here today. It was an honor to have you, Greg. Congratulations. We are all here because we care, and there's many more like all of us here. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The ancient forefathers, I could just mention because I know, Plato and Aristotle, is the purpose of life, is the pursuit of happiness and education. And that's why in antiquity, all societies, great societies, believed in education. And so Aristotle had Lyceum, Plato had the Academy, and so forth, and in Egypt and in so many wonderful, great societies. And it all starts with educating the children, as these wonderful people are doing on this panel today. Spread the light, spread love, and spread peace, everyone. Thank you so much. And plant trees.
I would like to have one more moment. to explain everybody the purpose of this group gathered together. This group is the Salus Wellbeing Network. It is our intention of all of the employees and the Recreation Council of the UN to bring people like yourselves so that we can get involved in your projects. We urge you all to participate in each other's projects because it's the only way inter alia that we can connect. So after this, we're going to go across the street to the DC1 and we can share the cards. Please, can you get everybody a card from the business? What we're doing also is the Vigil for Peace in Central Park on the 17th of September. Please mark your calendars because it's participatory. And my next thing is it possible for you wonderful people to be willing to do another panel with us this year so we can actually bring more people to have an interactive discussion because your topics are wonderful. Please, I urge you to please join us, contact us. We'll get the room and we can bring you forth and then we can have a merging of the minds.
Let's do a World Road Show.
Yes, well, yes. And also we were working on having Skype meetings. I also work with the NGOs, with the Peace Prayer Society, the We the World. They're across the street having a ceremony right now, and then they're joining us at the DC1 Lounge. But what happens is that we want to reach a dialogue. And I am allowed to use these rooms during the lunchtime. And if you guys show up, I'm willing to go the mile, make the request to please invite you to communicate. And this is going to be rebroadcast. So anybody in the ideas, SusannaBasterica.com. And also you can call UNSRC at UN.org, the Recreation Council, which is always informing us of all of the activities of the wonderful groups at the UN with the civil society, with the United Nations. I thank you very much. This was awesome. So let's go party now. Thank you. Thank you.
For those that are going to be here tomorrow night at the Alchemist Kitchen, we're going to be having our Whole Foods DVD release party. Our DVD Blu-ray will be nationwide in Whole Foods. So tomorrow evening at the Alchemist Kitchen from 9:30 to 12:30 in the evening, if you're around and you want to come down and join us, we'd love to see everybody that's here as well.